Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, team, welcome back to the Property Pod. Boys, it's been a chilly old morning here in Hobart.
100%, 100%.
She's, first day of the frost here, so it's kind of, I thought things would be a bit icy in the studio, but yeah, we're rolling hot in here today.
For a throwback for anyone that remembers of the speech I did at Guildford, I'm back wearing the man scarf because it's where it's ready for that.
I was
that
actually,
kind of weather.
as you walked in with that scarf on, I was like, that looks like some high quality material.
Merino wool. Unfortunately, it was one of those moments where you fall in love with it and then you look at the price tag later and you're too proud to put it back down.
I'm always proud enough to put it back
Yeah.
down.
Yep.
When you came in with it, I thought you must have been your clan colours or something. I know you've got your...
I do have one with the McGregor scarf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've already got a scarf that looks very similar to that.
With our clan colours.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's got big brighter reds, but it's a big, super thick wool one. I don't know.
That's probably got more sentimental meaning than the extra exorbitantly priced one that you've got sitting on the table.
Yeah, but geez, it feels good. It's a good motivator to make sales. Actually, there was this guy many years ago there was a trainer. He said if you really want to motivate your staff, he'd encourage them to go out and buy an expensive car, get a heap of stuff on hire purchase and make themselves look flashy so that when they get into the office next day, the salespeople will be super motivated to make money. Otherwise, they're going to go bankrupt. And there was a trainer who used to encourage that. And I was like, that's shocking.
That's some real bad advice.
But I tell you, if you're going to motivate it, get motivated to make sales, get in debt, that'll soon get you out the door. That'll soon get you over your phone call reluctance. If you don't call, you don't eat that night.
So basically what you're saying there is like put yourself in heaps and heaps of debt to try and earn back that money and then hopefully a little bit more.
I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? But that was the guy's idea. That's
But you get to drive a really nice car while you do it.
And wear a really expensive scarf.
And where it looks like you got everything under control, but it's just like that duck on the water scenario, smooth sailing on top, and then underneath the legs are going crazy.
Well, I reckon that scarf looks good around your neck in the Tucson.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Yeah. Don't worry about spending the big bucks on the car, but spend the big bucks on the scarf.
That'll fly.
Yeah,
so
that'll work.
Just as a point of curiosity, as someone who is in sales and knows the techniques to try and make a sale, you don't have like a counter option to just be like, put the kibosh on, just be like, mate, I know exactly what you're doing. Stop shaming me into buying this scarf.
Say that again,
He's basically saying, because you do sales, how did he trick you into buying this scarf?
Oh,
Why
no,
did you be
that's
hang on, you're using the same things I do.
No, see, that's the problem. That's just me and my own. It's all on me at this point. My own insecurities. I guess it's got nothing to do with the salesperson.
It's like when I sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree and they try to lowball me. I'm like, you're playing with the wrong person.
Yeah, you get amazing price. They'll come in and they'll be like, yeah, they wanted this price, and I just said no way. And then they always still buy it.
Well, see, it's an irony for me. Maybe it's that little bit of ego, I suppose, but I do much better negotiating on other people's behalf than I do on my own. So, it's always actually better for me to get someone else to negotiate for me.
I think we've had this discussion before where I will happily pay something for somebody else and give them the money, but if it's my own money and I'm kind of thinking about it, but I don't need
can't
that
do it.
thing.
When you're ready to get the matching socks, John, I'll help you out.
You're going to help me out.
For you.
You're going to come back to mine with me and just shame that dude and give me a discount.
You made him pay how much for that scarf?
Well, I sort of justify some larger purchases now. Look, that's going to last me 20, 30 years. Who knows?
Not with you, John. You lose stuff all the time.
Come on, this suit I've had this for since my mate's wedding. This is working. So my jackets, my clothes last a while.
All right, if we get to episode 300, and we're still doing this thing and we're still playing, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to put a reminder in my phone to say, ask John about his merino scarf.
Yeah. Oh,
and he's like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. We lost it a week after we talked about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we better talk some real estate.
That's true.
Yeah, so I actually had a segue that we were going to jump from you buying something in the marketplace of Maya into buying something off the marketplace online or off market.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I was going to try and jump us from here to there.
So, because we had a couple of stories. I mean, there was some interesting things that are happening right now post the virus in the few months. Obviously, Hobart's had, nearly 50, 60 days virus-free.
Yep.
So it seems that a lot of people now just want to get on with their lives. And didn't you say one of our agents in the area had a really successful home just in Glenorchy or something? It was and then they dobbed her in?
Oh, well, it wasn't from our agency, but there was another agency that had a property here in Glenorchy. I think she had 55 people through the open home on Saturday.
Yeah, we haven't seen those numbers since, last year.
My wife, Abby, drove past the open home at the time and the cars were up and down the street. She was just trying to get through to go to where she was going, and she said it was just bedlam up there. People everywhere.
Well, that's because apparently someone dobbed her in as well for, even though technically we can have 80 people now, but it's still relevant to only a few people per square metre in the room or something.
Yeah, apparently, and I believe that this lady was doing everything right. It was just a sour great person out there that decided they wanted to.
There's always a keyboard warrior out there that
Yeah.
really wants to fight. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing though to think that open homes have only kind of reopened back up, and it's kind of one of those things. Will it survive the new world order? Will it be something that is happening, or will it kind of change the landscape? But 50 people to an open home, like, it must be priced right in the pocket. It must be a well presented. I saw a few photos of all the people lined up on the stairs, kind of like the socially distanced between space and space and space. And so obviously it changes the game of, you have a 15-minute window. Let's all rush in and have, like, it could have taken a few hours to get that many people through.
Absolutely. In that sense, then, without talking to the agent, you could assume that either they tried to make sure they could cram as many people into a short period of time, given the scope of maybe inquiries and inspections that had been requested, or it just goes to show that the public still has not their opinions of open homes haven't changed one bit whatsoever. Still more than comfortable hosting it, and it might also be to a demographic, because I assume that sort of that mid-4 sort of range, it's be younger generations and first home buyers as well, or second plus buyers, may not necessarily be your retirees. Sort of like it might be a generation element as well. So different generations will have different comfort levels depending upon the means in which they purchase and view property.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, it really goes to show again, like I said, is that people just want to get on with it. And there's been a lot of people that have had a hard time. There's been less stock on the market, are just ready to keen right. I've been waiting, and now it's time to start just getting out there.
Yeah, well, we're back to pre-COVID sales, so back to our January, February numbers, which is great.
Well, no, because the other thing too then is it's really great on the activity front. And with any luck now, given that people have been delaying time to put their properties in the market, we know that after we were chatting before with the release the relaxation in the emergency tenancy legislation, so normal vacancies can start to happen again. So we'll start to see potentially some more stock from investors.
The other thing is that the home builder thing is finally active. So that's, I think it was the 4th or something, applications could be made. I know we've spoken about it a few times, but the Morrison Home Builder Scheme is finally in action. It's kind of, you can actually start making your applications put together. What we might do is put the article I read, the Mercury one, we'll pop it into the show notes. And if you want to jump in there, because we've tried to talk about this so many times and we just keep going around in circles.
And we never get it right.
Well,
No,
and
we
if
don't.
you look at all the criteria, there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where then when people say, am I eligible? It's like, well, there's going to be a lot of big conversation around that.
Yeah.
There was one thing I think you saw about natural person, though. I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, I was just describing off mic before that as I read through it, obviously not reading grants and stuff and applications, I got to this section and it was like, are you eligible for it? And it said applicant must be a natural person.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell's it? Like, what makes you natural and not natural? And then I
Don't
kept...
wear deodorant.
Yeah, well, I kept reading on. It said not a company or trust. And I was like, oh, yep, the penny's dropped on that. I finally understand. You don't have to be a nudist.
Yeah,
Just like you walk into Parliament House with a nut and I'd like to build.
All applications come with a photo, and you don't have jobs. You're just nudist. Well, I remember before you mentioned that we were talking about, if with the activity in the market starting to pick up again.
Yep.
Well, this would be interesting to see with obviously applications. One of the side notes of that is, I suppose, where it did mention the pricing comes for people, is there will be another element where as these buildings are approved, some people might then look to sell their existing home as well, ready in time for those for the buildings to finish. And a good example of that, one of our I was speaking about the challenge we were having with a property in Sandy Bay last week.
Oh, yeah. Do we have a good news story?
Yeah, we do. So there's certainly some progression on
Vampire?
that. So what we're doing, and this might be a fun one to be an ongoing one for us to review again next week. So we've got painters going in, because one of the challenges for that unit is, because it was so small, people walking in, walking straight back out, is a bit tight. I had a discussion with the owner and just said, look, one of the things we did, because the tenant was still in there at the time, was, it looked good with the furniture, but that was right. And then all of a sudden the virus hit, so we couldn't even show it.
Yep.
So when she's left, you've got all these little spots on the wall. So it was tired. We tried to get away with not spending the money. So he understood. So, we're doing what we really needed to do to start with.
Yep.
But what happened with that then was we have had quite a few people obviously still look at the property, and, they are still looking for different options, and it got us thinking about that idea. Well, as the market starts to pick up again and you're trying to find ways of purchasing property without in excess competition, what do you do? So then that led to a young couple looking to buy their first home together. That was going to be too small, because if you've got one bedroom unit, having both of you in each other's grill all the time, they probably end up,
Yeah, there's no
at each other's
doghouse.
throat.
Yeah.
No doghouse.
I think you've missed out an opportunity there, John. You could have got a resale in 6 months' time.
Well, that's true. I can't imagine those guys.
Oh, that's nasty.
Like he's right. You
Hey,
think it's
look-
such a small space, things
what-
aren't going to end well.
Well, why do people sell property? Hey, that's not always a pretty story, that's for sure. So with that, these stories relate then. So my current owner, he's selling it in order to he's getting a new house built in Canberra.
Yep.
And of course, when it comes to a build, you do need stages of deposit for it to progress, like 10%, 15. Is there about 3 or 4, Pat, or is it
It
different?
depends how you finance it.
Yeah.
So depending on everyone's circumstances.
Cool. So you might have a bit of cash for that first element, and then
Yeah.
they'll extend it depending on your
So it
size.
sounds like he's doing stage financing. So the first one would be once the foundations are done. The second
Yep.
one's when it's at lock up. The third is halfway through fit out, and then a final.
And then final one. Yeah, gotcha. Because I know he said, part of it's subject to the sale of this unit. So then this couple, of course, well, then they're still in the forefront of my mind, and we end up just happen to have another property in Davey Street that's vacant. The owners had just had a formal valuation, so I called them up and just said, "Hey guys, had you thought about moving it on?" And they said, "Well, because look, we won't have to go to market. I've just been working with this couple. They need something a little bit bigger. They're looking to stay within the under the 400,000 because because we've still got that 50% stamp duty relief. The second they spend 400,000 in a cent, they immediately have to pay another. If they get it for 400 grand, their stamp duty." If they paid above that, it'd be 14 grand, but to save it, that's 7. So, it's a significant saving.
Yeah,
for them.
definitely.
And lo and behold, after having a discussion, they said, "Well, we'll get back to you in a couple of days." And they said, "You know what? Let's do it." So they've as it turned out, their property, that was their first little unit they ever bought when they were first as a couple, and it's going. And they thought, we were considering if we did go to market, we want 420, but hearing their story, you know what? We thought, let's give back a little bit.
Yeah,
And
wow.
So they said, let's do it. And then we'll be signing up a contract today. And when I got the offer from the couple, he wasn't 100% sure. And he said it was the lawyer in him. The offer was $399,999.99.
Yeah.
Because he was thinking, he wasn't sure whether or not you had to be under 400 or 400. And I called, my broker, and he said, no, it can be 400 and below. But then I did say to him, look, if you want to do the offer at that number, I'd be more than happy to present that. And, I'd make up the 1 cent to the owners myself because I think it'd be hilarious to see a transfer of $399,999.99. Anyway, so that's all come together really nicely. So, we've still got, with the Sandy Bay one, obviously they couldn't find that, but the owners never really wanted to go to market with their property maybe for another 12 months.
Yep.
But because of their specific story, if it was anywhere else, I reckon they probably would have wanted to make sure that, look, we won't sell it we'd want to sell it for 420, but because of their situation, their story, they were happy to let it go for less.
It's funny. There's like 2 things I can take out of that would kind of take us in completely different directions. I'll try and tie it all together. But
Yeah.
I guess one thing I've always wondered about is buying off market. Actually, I can do this.
Yeah.
So buying off market and the narrative that goes behind the sale sort of thing. So my place that I bought, Pat, I went in and took the photos for one of your listings.
You did? Yep.
Went in and loved everything about it, kind of took the photos of the place. I'm just looking around, just being like, oh man, I'd love to take that wall out. And if I took that out, that would open up all this area.
Then he charmed the owner, and the owner's like, we can't sell it to anyone else, and then I was screwed.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah,
was
keep going.
as I'm in the place and looking around it, we just got talking to the owners, and they'd worked in rural, remote outback Australia, and I said, oh yeah, I've done similar things, and we just kind of hit
Really
it off.
clicked.
It just was one of those things where we clicked.
Yeah.
And then after I left, I was like, oh, I am in the market. And I said to Pat, like, what's the price on that? I'd really like to know. And I said, just when you present the offer as well, just tell them it was me. Just make sure they know
Who's buying it, yeah.
who's buying it. And then the result was, oh, yeah, that photographer was such a lovely guy. We'd love for him to have our family home.
That's great. Yeah.
When we got into the home and had a full piece of handwritten information all about the house and kind of this is our centenary rose, this is all this stuff. So
wow.
the narrative of going in and kind of really similar to your story is like, oh, this is going to be their first home. We'd really love to like take that little bit of price off or like make sure it
Help
goes
them
that
out.
way, help them
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
That's one side of the coin. But then I really didn't know if buying off the market was a regular thing or if it wasn't a regular thing. So now it's kind of, now that you've mentioned that, it's got my brain ticking on that side of the coin. How regularly does it happen?
Actually, before I answer that, have you ever had that experience in any other homes you've ever taken photos of? Like you've just all of a sudden really gone, really engaged with what you would do personally?
There was one other home I went into, but I think it was because I was in that mindset of I'm finally at the position
You're
that
ready
I
to buy.
may be able to buy.
Right,
And
right.
so the brain ticked into,
This is a possibility.
This is a
right?
possibility. So maybe actually really think about it rather than, oh, yeah, that'd be nice if that wall was gone or this or that.
That makes sense.
But the funny bit was me and my partner had only had the conversation maybe 3 or 4 days prior that we were like, are we going to seriously start doing this?
Oh, wow.
All right, let's have a go. And then the next house I go into, I'm just like,
That's a crazy thing about real estate and life in general. It's the same when you see a car that you really love, and all of a sudden you start seeing it time and time again. And we'll have properties that,
or you click on something on Facebook and then it just keeps coming back time and time again.
That's certainly the universe, and not weird tech companies engaging in that. But even we've had properties that will there'll be no interest whatsoever, and then 2 months rides on, and then all of a sudden 3 people all want it at the exact same time. What happens with that? And always it seems that it's when it's almost like a psychological shift in the owner, ready to release that property for whatever purpose has changed.
Yeah.
And it's just that the motivation shifts in the means that like now where it's ready to go, which means all of a sudden the people start to appear. It's so weird. And I guess the same thing happens when you're buying too, is like all of a sudden you shift from, possibility thinking versus a dream thinking like you would once before. Bam, that property rise. Bam, that story rise with that specific owner who's had very specific experiences that you got to meet. Normally they're not there when you do the photo shoot.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
everything started to align within 3 days of you going, let's do this,
It's the universe, baby.
Well, and I guess like where you asked is off market, does it happen? Absolutely it does. But it depends on, there's different agencies too. Like I know there was a one training I did many moons ago where, they don't do open homes, for example. They'll only take a few photos on the internet. Most of their ways in which the operators is trying to be driven by relationship selling. So it's not trying to do huge, big marketing campaigns to attract 100 people. It's about working with the networks you have and the people that you have, and doing just a minimal amount of marketing to try and get the property through. And I know for us and we were talking this morning before we started. Was it Martin from your office has just got what's the story there with Kurt?
Yeah, so Marty's got a new one that he's just put up in Claremont, and he did get an offer on that before it went to market, but the owners and him both decided that they'd like to take it to market for a week or two just to see what interest there are.
Yeah.
So, this place, and now at the time I couldn't understand why. It had a really strong offer. It was really well positioned with its conditions, but now I've seen the photos that Aaron's taken, and I can probably see why he wanted to try it.
It's worth trying it out. Yeah, we've come this far.
It has one of those really good street appeal looks to it.
Yeah. And I guess it's the thing too, is that what's harm with waiting 4 days? And I guess to that first challenge, I suppose, that first purchase, look, sorry guys, we've got to put you on ice for the minute, but we never intended to sell this quickly anyway. Can we at least wait 4 days and then we'll get back to you, and if anything changes.
So can you guys talk to the pros and cons of selling off market? Like obviously I feel like I got a good deal with my place.
Yep.
These people that you spoke of before probably sound like they've got a good deal. So is it more advantageous for the buyer to get something off market, or could you be paying way over the price perhaps because you could just be throwing out a number and just being like, yeah, I'll give you that. And they're just like, oh, yeah, we didn't expect that. Boom, we'll take it.
I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword on that regard. Like there are pros and cons for both the buyer and the vendor.
Yep.
And it comes down to the individual person. So for some vendors, not having to worry about that whole stress and that whole aspect of it, and like if it's within the 5% of where we think it is on market and they just can walk away and it's done.
Yep.
Then sure, they
Why
love
not?
it. Yeah, why not? Let's just jump on this and move on and go reinvest that money into another project. Or it can come down to as well what they're trying to do with that money. Maybe they've got a house that they're trying to secure that's subject to the sale of this one. So rather than miss out on their dream home over losing $10,000 or $15,000, it's not worth it to them. They're like, no, we want to secure this property. We don't care if you've got an off buyer. Let's do it.
Yeah, it fits what we need. We need that certainty now. Let's move.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so you're right. Some people could potentially pay a little bit less on an off-market sale than what they might have to if they go to market, but an owner might accept that because that helps them move on to whatever they need to do.
So again, it's that narrative of the seller's point of view is, oh, I need this for my future story.
But it could go the opposite way as well. A buyer might pay too much for a property because we haven't tested the market. We don't know.
Yep.
So they're relying heavily on the agent's opinion, and they're relying heavily on their own research. And sometimes that can go the opposite way on you as well.
Yeah. Well, there was once that I met this guy. Now, this would have been several years ago, and he'd sold his house in North Hobart because someone had knocked on his door and said, love your place. I'm keen to buy it. Here's, what he thought was a good offer for cash. He's like, oh, sweet. I'm just going to sell and go and find myself a better place. Lo and behold, he was the market was the capital was increasing. So as soon by the time his property had settled, the market had already shifted like another 5%. So he couldn't even buy into the same suburb that he'd sold in. So basically all he did is he just shortchanged himself by, rushing, like make an impulsive decision to sell, thinking he got a good deal.
Yep.
And lo and behold, all it meant was then he had to move into a worse house in a suburb that he didn't even want to be in.
Oh, so he went backwards.
So he went backwards. And that was a case that, how was that off market? Someone just knocked on his door. And that happens a lot. And we've got clients of ours that we've done a few properties for, and they've, with developments, and they certainly don't mind if they see properties that are of interest to them. They'll leave a note, they'll leave a card, they'll just say, hey, if you're ever interested in some, please give us a call. We'd love to chat.
This is not agents. This is
just private
Joe
buyers.
Blow. Yep.
Private buyers going to private sellers, going, hey, call me first.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a private buyer send us literally a list overnight of about a dozen blocks of land that he would like to try and secure, like ones that he's identified in different suburbs that have just been abandoned.
Oh, really? Can you help us out with it?
He's given us... He's done all the research himself, and he's asked us now to reach out to the people and just see if they would entertain the idea of selling. So,
is that because I suppose with that he doesn't know who owns those lands, or he knows who?
Well, no, he has. He's got all that info.
Oh, really?
He's provided everything to us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He said that he just would prefer for an agent to reach out to them and say that they're working with a buyer rather than him approach them himself.
That's interesting.
So, I hope the info he's got's correct because we're about to go contact the people. But
I'd be curious to see what kind of response you get from that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Would someone feel more comfortable, like, I'll just call it a private citizen in this case.
A natural person.
A natural person, not an agent, approaching them, or would they feel more comfortable than an agent? I guess, what are you going to do there? Would just be say, hey, look, someone's asked us to call you. They felt like you'd be more comfortable. How do you think you'll approach that?
don't know.
See what happens, yeah.
See what happens.
As a natural person over here, I feel like I would be more likely to to respond to an agent than just Joe Blow on the street, because I'd be like, what's this guy's caper? Like, am I getting stooged or something here?
Yeah.
So I guess like an agent calling and being kind of, g'day mate, I've got this buyer who's really interested in this parcel of land. If you're interested, boom. But if it was like, g'day mate, yeah, bloody, I like that grass you got there. You want to sell it to me?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Absolutely. I know, look, when I've done it...
Sorry, my voices aren't as good as John's American guy.
Well...
At least my voice is on today's episode, Pat. You're just sitting there being quiet. You're doing nothing. Just because it's school holidays and you haven't had much sleep.
Look, why talk when you don't need to?
Yeah.
Sit here and be part of the atmosphere.
Just handball it to us too, right? Well, I know, look, when I've done it in the past, it always just straight up state, not whenever I've asked, I won't be trying change the subject. It just gets you straight to the point. Hey, the reason for my call is X. What do you think? And then obviously you're not trying to pressure him. But look, I know if it were me personally, and we've had it all the time. We've even had people that have asked, like they've been approached, and then they'll ask us to help with advice. We had one in Clifford Street in Moona, for example, that the guy had advertised the property on Gumtree, but before he did that, he'd actually asked me to go in and give him advice. And he said, look, I'm intending to sell it privately. Can you give me some advice? I said, look, no trouble whatsoever. So he ended up, he found someone who was an investor. And so he just said to the investor, look, if you want some advice, call John. So he called me and we spent some time and I walked through the property with him as well. And then we actually, they'd already pre-negotiated a price, and then they came into my office and then I went through the contract with both of them and we worked through the small little bits of details in order to get the deal together for them. So that was an interesting one where, for me then we, the buyer actually got our company to look after investments. So it did pay off for us financially. So that's where, like off-market deals happen all the time. And I know when people will still ask us, look, if there's anything that comes up, please let me know. But where it's, I know when it came to this young couple, there was just that conversation just happened, and we just so happened to chat with one of our investors not 2 days later, and like started to map those little options together. And I guess when it comes to the advice, if people are looking, how do we do this? Well, sometimes you do have to be a bit bold. You might have to go through, and no different than us searching for business and you're searching for property, you might have to go the approach of actually just finding something you like and just leaving a note, because you never know when it might hit that perfect time for someone. Or also too, don't when you're if you do find agents that you felt comfortable talking to, don't be afraid to call them every couple of weeks and just say, hey, I'm still here. If you're thinking of me, let me know, because it might not be a specific deal that will come to the market, but there might be a little side opportunity that might, come in their radar that they might otherwise not have mapped to put together.
Yeah, I guess that's where my brain was ticking when you were kind of bringing it up. I was like, I don't know about this note business. That kind of seems a bit strange to me.
Yeah,
but
that's extreme, yeah.
But if I was looking, I'd want to. I know it's this crazy database thing, and you're kind of constantly trying to be like unsubscribe from random emails that you try to get on. But if you're actually in the market for something, you want to do the research and get on it. And if you do find an agent who you feel comfortable with and you can have that kind of rapport with, it's worthwhile jumping on board with them and talking to them and just being like, look, if anything comes up,
please call me.
And you want to be in the forefront of their mind.
Yep.
This is kind of the digression, but I was listening to a Louis Theroux podcast the other day. He was talking to Chris O'Dowd, the guy from the IT crowd. Remember the big lanky guy?
Yes. Yeah.
So his technique when he'd go into any audition when he went to America was he'd always walk in and pretend he'd just been bitten by a dog. He'd just come in and be like, oh, did you see that dog out there? Yeah, it just nipped at my foot. And he said, oh, the reason I did that was if later on I wanted to be the forefront of their mind and be like, oh, which one was Chris O'Dowd?
The one who got nipped
the one that got nipped by the foot.
Brilliant idea.
But then it come back to bite him because then he went back another time to the same audition but forgot that he'd already done that bit.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, that's so strange because you
Got bit by the dog
last time. And then he said he had to think on his feet. He's like, oh, yeah, no, it's been really happening to me a lot lately. But I guess...
Must be that peanut butter I rub around my ankles.
Well, see, I guess it's about having that little element of why someone remembers you, and sometimes it's not a face, a name. I remember there was one agent I met. He used
Or a scarf.
Well, in this case for me, it's good. Hey, this will pay in dividends. I know it. I can feel it in my veins.
John the scarfed agent.
There's going to be a lot of
God, that's going to look good in the wind with your moped, J-Mac.
Maybe we could come up with a new ratio, like scarf to opportunity ratios. That'll work.
We'll draw up the graph.
Yeah, we'll draw up the graph. Well, anyway, so there's this agent. At his open homes, he used to wear orange socks. So when he would, and he'd always ask people to take their shoes off because he'd have his off. But the whole purpose was because when he'd call back, he'd say, "Hey, it's such and such from blah. I was the one with the orange socks." They're like, "Oh, right, yeah."
Because you go into 3 or 4 open homes.
You have no idea who it is.
You can't remember which agent's which.
So you link that agent to that home, and it's quickly boom. They can get into the zone of being able to provide the feedback on that property.
That's why Pat got all the tattoos on his leg.
Yeah.
Which worked well yesterday to show you.
See, there you go.
See, there you go. To remember it. But I can see you wearing chinos today, mate. What's the normally it's old shorts.
It was cold.
It's cold enough. It's cold
It was
enough.
0 degrees in Rosetta this morning, okay?
All right, so I guess what we've kind of established is, or what I'm trying to get across there was building a relationship with an agent gives you opportunities for things that don't kind of stream through your realestate.coms and domains. Hopefully you can get in the forefront of their mind. And if something does come up, like the story you've told with the little unit on Davey Street, boom, 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 you put all the pieces together and you've got
You never know
a
when
Yahtzee.
Well, the other thing too is that it's the same when a lot of people they'll say, oh, they want to try and sell it privately because they might be embarrassed or they don't want the neighbours to know. There could be some other external circumstances. Thing is, when you're buying, is you want everyone to know that you're trying to buy a property because it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a work colleague. It's like, hey, this is what I'm after, this is what I'm trying, and just let yourself freely tell everyone because, again, just like it might be an agent specific, but it might be someone in your friendship circle who's like, hey, well, my parents were thinking of selling. How about you come and chat to me? So it's sort of an element that if you're trying to buy off market, you basically you're planning all the opportunities in through your relationship. So you're letting everyone know who you are, why you're buying, how much you're prepared to pay, and you just never know when. It's like that ripple effect. You never know when it's going to bounce back.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good way of putting it. I like the way you've summed that up. Well, I think, boys, me and John have put in our hard yards today, and now Pat will talk for 15 minutes to make up for all the talking that he didn't do in today's show.
Go.
What's up with you? Are you okay?
Mate, I'm sure there'll be some text
I would
stuff.
like you to listen back because I think I talked more than you're giving me credit for.
All right, I'll listen back and I'll do up a graph of how much you spoke and how much we spoke.
Look, I think it's all fair to say that it's hard to get a word in with John anyway. So,
I do my best.
and you never want to break someone when they're on their flow.
Yeah, but sometimes you've got to break John when he's on his flow.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to punch in and just be like, oi.
You do have to talk over me.
Yeah.
That's But I don't mind. Like, I'll usually remember where I was.
John, stop now. All right.
I'm used to people trampling all over me.
Selling me scarves that I don't want. All right, guys. That's episode 51 in the can.
Cool.
Thanks for sticking with us. We're the Property Pod.
All the best, boys.
See ya.
Bye.
414 Real Estate has been operating within the northern suburbs of Hobart since 2006 with their innovative approach to marketing and managing your property. They have all your property needs covered. Find out more by visiting them today at 414.com.au.
You have been listening to The Property Pod, produced and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Real Estate and McGregor First National Propriety Limited.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek and use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information.